It is 1:01 p.m. here on the west coast of the United States of America. It is March the 10th, and it's raining. But everything is fine and good. I hope you're having a good day so far, depending on what time it is. Maybe it's morning where you are. Maybe you're watching this later on a replay. Thank you for doing that. We're excited for our weekly Q&A and just interaction with one another. So let's just jump into it. Drop some comments. Sapere Aude is here. What's up? What's up, brother? Alpha is here. Nice icon change, Alpha. I don't know what that's from, but kind of looks cool. And we are streaming on 3 different platforms. We are on YouTube, we are on Twitch, and we are on Facebook. Hit that like button because it helps us quite a bit. And drop a comment. Comments, as a matter of fact, help quite a bit as well. So, interaction. YouTube algorithmic stuff like interaction. So, hey, what's up? Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Cassidy, how you doing? Try our best, by the way. If you noticed, I don't know what you guys think about the green background. Let me know, by the way. That's supposed to be green too, but it's appearing as blue. But commenting for the algorithm. There we go. I dropped a little video yesterday, which was a new intro to the channel because a number of things have changed since I dropped the first intro. Yeah, I mean, we're streaming a lot more. There's a lot more stuff in place, and generally we're planned a lot better than we were. If you haven't seen that, make sure you go and check that out. I'm also running an ad on that. We'll see how that comes out. We'll see what that turns into. It'll be very interesting to see what it's my first time ever running a YouTube ad. So we'll see what that's going to look like. Jerome's in the house. What's up, Jerome? Hey, did you check that out, Jerome? I did that specifically with you in mind. I was like, this is the appearance of free will, but it's not really. So Arthur is forcing me to lie on the poll. No, actually, I'm not. You can still not hit anything on the poll and not hit the like button. So you're not forced to do anything, man. But if you did hit the like button, then you're going to hit one of the yeses. If you did not hit the like button and you click one of the yeses, then you're lying to yourself. I'm not forcing you to do anything. Or you just don't hit the like button and don't do anything on the poll. Or you hit the like button and say yes on the poll. Right? It's your own choice, Jerome. You're responsible for your own actions. Don't blame me. But I did have you in mind when I did that. It's like, how did that get so complicated, man? Jerome always complicates everything. Hey, Jerome, Liverpool win tomorrow. We're sitting in 4th. Just saying. Well, it depends, right? It is who's Tottenham playing? Tottenham's playing Forest at 7. We could be in 4th place technically for about 2 hours or something, depending on how the Tottenham game goes, because we still have a game in hand. There you go, Jerome. Very nice of you. Or I saw this video of a Christian man that got a message from God about Armenia. And he talks for 30 minutes of what God will do for Armenia. Is that type of stuff reliable? It really depends. So I've heard, I don't know whether this might be the same video. Send me that video, by the way. Just email it to me, info@apologiacenter.com. You can put it in the chat. I've seen stuff like this where it's been very unreliable, and I've seen stuff like this even in Armenia, from Armenia, where it's been very unreliable. Just people have been wrong. So, yeah. I mean, look, it's if someone's going to get up there and say, "Hey, God told me a word for such and such," and then it doesn't come to pass, then clearly it was not God and it was them, and they're wrong. If you post a link, it's not going to show up, by the way. PSG out of the Champions League again. I'm not surprised. They're a horrendous team. PSG is only a good team in France because the French league is so weak. That PSG team, week in, week out, in Spain or in England, will struggle. So, oh, it has Neymar. Oh, it has Mbappe. Oh, it has a very old Messi. It has no midfield and no defense. I still find it funny that Liverpool decided to stop throwing. What do you mean stop throwing? Literally as soon as we made the wager. Maybe so. Funny how? Funny like haha? Or funny like wow? I am. I am. PSG goes there and like super dominates these teams, and they think they're going to go into Europe and super dominate teams like Bayern Munich, teams like Real Madrid. They're not. Week in, week out. Jeremy's in the house. What's up, Jeremy? How you doing, brother? By the way, I got my Bible open here. Why is this not going away? Go away. Kindle, man. Anybody that knows the game of football understands that you need midfielders and defenders. It's like, who cares? They could have the greatest forward line on the planet. If they don't have a midfield that doesn't get back there to defend, and their defense is not as strong, they're not winning anything. Again, they might win stuff in France, in the French league, but other than that, that's about it. You know how I said that I had a question that I wanted to save for another time? I just realized that asking said question would be hefty instigation. So I don't think I'll ask it at all. Instigation in what sense? Jerome, man, you have the freedom to do whatever you want with your life. You can ask the question. By the way, I don't have to answer your question. It's just the reality. I can just say I don't want to answer it. Because I have the freedom to do that, and you have the freedom to ask your question. Hello, what's going on? We got Twitch in the house. What's up, Twitch? Proper lunch. How you doing? Um, correct. The problem is that PSG is dumping all the money they can potentially pay players on their forward line, and they don't have enough money left to invest into quality players that will make their team better. It's just really, really bad financially. I'm not daring you to do anything, man. I really am not. I'm just telling you that you're a free creature. Hit that like button, guys. There's 10 of us in here. And only 6 of you guys have had the willpower to go. If you're watching on your phone. If you're watching on the computer, you move the mouse over it and you go, look, done. More often than not, I have found that we can disagree on a topic, and it is actually good to work through that. Oh, absolutely. Because sometimes you realize, thinking on my feet here, okay? It seems to me that sometimes you realize it might not be the actual thing you're disagreeing about, but the way you got there or the reasons for that thing, right? Like you can have the same conclusions and disagree with the reasons as to how you got there. It's completely fair. You might disagree as to the evidences or whatever like that, but come to the same conclusion. You might actually disagree on the conclusion and then look at all the evidences and reasons and all that stuff. And there's just overarching, right? Like in regards to theology or whatever it may be. And then hearing your, let's say, quote unquote, opponent or the person in front of you might actually make you realize your argumentation or your reasoning is a lot stronger or it's a lot weaker. It could go in multiple directions. Man, I wish I was there. I wish I was there for the panel discussion that happened for the Why Jesus Network. That is my like. You know, maybe what I should do a reaction to the panel discussion. That hasn't been uploaded. Hey, I just realized my short on that got used has 1,200 views on the Why Jesus Network. The one with that little girl saying Martin Luther King Jr. What did he do? Died for our sins. That's so cute, man. It's hilarious. You will be at the next one. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that. I'm tempted to ask now because it ironically links to what you spoke about last time. Though that kid is just cute. Even the way she says it, man. Just the way she says Martin Luther King Jr. She goes, died for our sins. Dude, I love it. Oh, man. WJN, what? That is a WJN, the Why Jesus Network, is a YouTube channel that a group of us are involved in. What's up, PT? How you doing? I think later this month I will talk to my pastor in order to decline the ministry opportunity. I realized over the past few months I have many issues I still need to work through. Hey, that's very mature of you. Very, very mature of you. Well done. I can't be a mentor to anyone if I myself need help in various areas as it concerns godly living. Dude, that is maturity. Many people wouldn't realize that. Peasant like two. What's up? I'm an ex-Muslim here. Wow. Is that ex-Muslim now you're a Christian, or are you ex-Muslim now an atheist? Are you ex-Muslim now a Hindu? What's up with that? I'm not an ex-Muslim, by the way. Just I need to clarify that sometimes. Sometimes I need to clarify I'm not a Muslim at all. I remember when I was on Periscope, I used to put, God, religion in the tags, and then Muslims would come in there and they would just assume I'm Muslim because the way I look. And then they would say, Salam alaikum, and then I would respond to them, wa alaikum salam, and then the conversation would continue, and then like 10 minutes into it, they'd realize I'm Christian. It was very interesting. How should you go about telling him? The exact way you just told me. That right there shows maturity. Look, I would, as a matter of fact, what you might want to say, PT, is say exactly what you just said to me and to us, and then say, hey, would you be willing to mentor me in this process? And then we can revisit that a number of months down the line. But I wouldn't just, like, it wouldn't make sense for you to say, well, I'm going to reject it, but like not work through it or whatever like that, and then revisit it later on. Are you familiar with Epiphanes' letter to John? No, I can't say that I am. Or I don't remember. But I'm not familiar currently. React to the trailer. There's a short out that shows the panel. I watched that today.
What does it mean to be an evangelist? What does it mean to be a Pentecostal? Like, what are these titles and why?
You guys are hearing that. We'll get there. Okay, Jerome's going to ask. Jerome's asking the question. Here we go. It's a long one. Okay. I might need to write it down. You see how you said that the afterlife is very important to you? Okay. Because you're a Christian exclusivist. Okay. Why don't you spend all of your time converting? Okay. Why not spend all of the time converting? I wonder why that is. It's almost like Christians don't actually believe that separation from God is that bad. Okay, hang on. So, Christians I don't know. You'd probably need to read all three of these fully to understand what I'm saying. Okay, what are the three comments? The comments were these. I didn't say any other comment, by the way. Oh, I missed this one. And by all of your time, I mean literally all of it. Given the cost of not being saved, if I was a Christian, I'd want to save all people, but from my experience, Christians are lax in that respect. That's the second question. Jerome, before I answer this question, or these three questions, Jerome, I want to ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good or sound, let's not say sound, but how good do you think this question is? Scale of 1 to 10. Let's say scale of 0 to 10. Okay, like if I became a Christian, I'd probably be inclined to spend every waking moment trying to convert people, but clearly nobody actually does this. Again, how good of a question do you think this is? Scale of 0 to 10. Jerome. I'm going to answer your question, by the way. Let me ask the chat. Now, chat, do not be too harsh and do not be too lazy in your grading. How good, scale of 0 to 10, how good do you guys think Jerome's question is? Hi, Zek. It's nice that we're getting people from Twitch joining us. This is cool. So, Zek, you do believe in God and the Bible. That's great. So do I. And that's what this channel is dedicated to. Christian says 8. Come on, chat. Let's get active. Let us know how good do you guys think Jerome's question is. There's a reason why I'm asking what I'm asking. Okay, it's not to put down. It's not to whatever. Like, you guys know me well enough to know I take questions like this seriously. And then I'm going to break it down for you guys, let you know kind of where Jerome's coming from, what our takeaway should be as Christians, and then just plainly responding to this question. So I just need some interaction from you guys, okay? So we got an 8, we got a 6, we got a 3. Christian not only says it's an 8, he says it's a good question. Dan says it's a 4. Jeremy's being one of those weird guys, and he says it's a 6.873. Thank you, Jeremy. The question has to do with, it's a 3-part question, okay? It says, you see how I made a comment about the afterlife being important because you're a Christian exclusivist. Why don't you spend all your time converting? And by all your time, I mean literally all of it. Given the cost of not being saved, if I was a Christian, I'd want to save all people. But from my experience, Christians are lax in this respect. I wonder why that is. It's almost like Christians don't actually believe that separation from God is that bad. I don't know. You'd probably need to read all 3 of these to fully understand what I'm saying. I fully understand, I think, what you're saying. 5.73. Weirdos coming through. It's a 5. Also, I'd never in my life go on Twitch and not listen to gaming or politics stream. Religious streaming on Twitch seems to miss the target audience of Twitch in general. But go off, King. That's partly why I stream on Twitch, is because the audience on Twitch seems to me to be not so religious. It's, whoa, man. Righteous through Christ. Wow. Thank you very much. I appreciate this quite a bit. This is, I think, the second most live chat, super chat we've ever gotten. For the first most was from Ruslan. But appreciate it quite a bit. Thank you. I'm grateful for the ministry, Brother Arthur. This is so that you could add a copy of the critical Quran to your library. I appreciate that. I will use that for those purposes, as a matter of fact. John Adams is in the house. Look what you're doing, bro. Thank you, man. Twitch is like an unreached demographic. I think it's fine for him. Yeah, and then that's exactly why I'm there. That's exactly why I'm Twitch. So, okay, guys. You guys ready for this? If you're ready for my answer to Jerome, by the way, this wasn't in any way. What did you say in the beginning? If you ask this question, it's what? Instigation? Dude, this is a normal question. This is fine. It's a great question. I wonder what a 10 out of 10 question would look like. Yeah, me too. If you're ready for this answer, we're getting some interaction thrown in here. If you're ready, drop a little comment. Drop a little, not comment. Drop a little one in the chat. I'm saying that because I want to collect my thoughts as well as I read your comments. The chat seems to agree with me that the question might go in mid-tier, although I haven't really thought about how good it is. I'd give it like a 7, by the way. As questions go, and as folks who aren't believers or who might actually be very young believers, it's a 7 is what I would say. Miss Titus in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Man, we got some serious rollers in the house right now. We got Jeremy Collins in the house. We got Miss Titus in the house. We got John Adams in the house. These are all streamers, by the way. These folks all have YouTube channels, and they do a good job. Who else? Also, the reason why I said it links to what you said yesterday is because you think that I'm not allowed to use induction to go about making major life decisions. I didn't say you're not allowed to use induction. You seem to have misunderstood me. I didn't say you're not allowed to use it. The specific case we're talking about, I just didn't think was very strong. Okay, so let me answer this question. So I thought the question was going in a completely different direction, and the way I wrote down my notes is the way you said, like, the afterlife is important to me because I'm a Christian exclusivist. I just think the afterlife is important and should be brought into the equation. Once you bring the afterlife into the equation, the conversation changes quite a bit. It's like any equation you'd be doing. If there's an important aspect of it that you bring into it, it's going to change the way you deal with it and what's going on. Now, since I'm a Christian exclusivist and afterlife is important, now I know where you're going with this, but why not spend all of your time converting? It seems to me, Jerome, that you are missing a serious point in theology. Okay? So if I thought conversion was solely my doing, and that if I didn't like do whatever, like talk to you or whatever like that, you were like accidentally going to go to hell, or like because of my negligence you were going to go to hell or something like that, then I would agree with you. Your conclusion is solid. The problem is that, and here's what you're missing theologically, is the sovereignty of God. Okay? And by the sovereignty of God, we're talking about God is ultimately in control, and God is ultimately responsible for those who become believers. And now, I want to separate this question into kind of two different areas. My kind of logical and theological response to it versus your care, I would say, or intention in regards to like, hey, Christians should care about this a lot more. I'm like super in agreement with you. Jerome, as a matter of fact, I would say you would make a really good Christian. If this is your heart, and since you understand this, then you would make a good Christian in the sense of you would take it seriously enough that you got to share your belief with others, and you want others to come to you to know Jesus because you care about them. St. Augustine said this in the 4th century, we tell people because we love people, right? That's essentially what you're saying. If Christians understood how important this is and how much we love people, we ought to share the gospel with people. Amen. That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm on Twitch. That's why I have a TikTok account. Unfortunately. So the question comes down to a theological one. Like, are we the ones who are responsible for the conversion of people, or is it God? And regardless where one might stand theologically, whether someone is Arminian theologically or a Calvinist theologically, I'm talking like classical Arminianism, not, you guys get what I'm saying. If those of you guys who know the theological disagreements and stuff like that know exactly what I'm talking about, there are folks that would actually go around kind of preaching this way as though we are ultimately responsible for the salvation. Like, if I don't tell someone they're going to go to hell, it's going to be my fault. Nobody seriously believes that. God is ultimately responsible. Let me put it this way, like as a counterfactual. If God knows that if I were to preach the gospel to you, or if anybody was to preach the gospel to you, then you would come to faith in him. He would make it so that someone would preach the gospel to you, or somehow that you would be communicated that message, and then make the decision and come to believe. That now I'm talking from my theological perspective, but I don't think a Calvinist would actually have much issues with that. The Calvinist is just going to essentially say that God has elected you and he's going to make it happen. The methodology of making that happen is doesn't really matter in this conversation. So there are theological presuppositions here that you're missing out that give rise to your question. Even though I think your question is great, and I think it's a caring one, and I actually would say this to a lot of Christians. I would say exactly what you're saying to a lot of Christians and say, hey, it doesn't seem to me that you guys get how important this is, and that you guys should be obedient to what the Bible actually teaches. And that if we love people, we will share the gospel with them, the truth of the gospel, and we will, as Paul puts it in the book of Corinthians, that we are God's ambassadors pleading with you so that you may be reconciled to God. Right? So I agree with what you're saying. What you're missing out in regards to why I don't spend every waking day doing this, what you miss out there is God's sovereignty. Right? Yeah. I don't think I left anything out in my answer. We'll come to that, by the way. I'm looking at some of the comments. Ms. Titus says, bro, you are a serious roller. I saw you on Ruslan. Y'all got way bigger YouTube channels than I do, man. I need something to go viral. I really do. Like, in the last 3 months, I know 3-4 people who had like shorts go viral, like just random stuff go viral, and there was like a nice spike in their YouTube channel. And I'm like, oh, come on, like, I just need something to go viral. That'd be really cool. Ephesians 4:2, equipping the saints for the work of ministry, it's better practice to train others to do it as well. Correct. Okay, so Jerome, are you sort of saying that given the belief Christians tend to have about the serious stakes of the afterlife that you would expect different behaviors from them in terms of evangelism. I think he is. And again, I agree with the sentiment. By the way, Jerome, what you're saying is, and what the way Sapere Ade put this out, I agree with you that I think a lot of Christians are a bit lazy when it comes to this. And I don't just mean lazy in the sense of them doing it, but even in the sense of preparing to do it well, because I think there is a way to do this well or not. And that's partly why I train people in apologetics. I mean, look, apologetics for me is not to get big heads and then think we're like better than everyone. Apologetics is a methodology of evangelism, right? Like apologetics is a tool you use in evangelism. I've been very open with everyone that my heart and my desire is evangelism. That's why I do what I do. Within that, we train Christians to do evangelism, but then we interact with atheists like you guys to do that evangelism. I mean, last week at my local church on Friday night, and that'll happen tonight as well, I was training, and I'm doing a 10-week series, 8-week series on evangelism, essentially training people on how to do evangelism. There was 50 people there last week. And so who I would want to take it seriously and be trained properly and know how to have conversations and be logical and treat people well, so on and so forth, right? Like, I don't want to go into all the details there, but I agree with your sentiment. I'm going to pull up a really, really cool video and show it to you guys. I watched this a while ago. I'm going to fast forward it to 1.25. I want you, and this guy is an atheist. Before I go there, let me jump into some of the comments that are being made, so I don't miss everything. Again, if I believe that, I'd probably never go to a Smash Ultimate tournament ever again to do anything else that doesn't involve converting people. Jerome, that's because you're not understanding the sovereignty of God. And again, if you're right about like that, your conclusion is true. But once you plug in a biblical understanding of the sovereignty of God in relation to people becoming Christians, that changes. Arthur, I think that your response brings another issue, honestly, the sovereignty of God. Idea seems at least imply that God has direct impact on who believe in Christian theism. Okay, so Jerome, you're confusing a bunch of stuff here, okay? Your main confusion is that you're asking me a specific question when it comes to Christianity. And so I'm answering you in a Christianly way from the internal evidence of the Bible. Then you're coming and saying it brings a question into like whether someone believes in Christian theism or not. You've asked me a question about how, as a Christian, I deal with this subject. I frankly don't care how a Muslim or a deist or something like that deals with these things, because the Bible is not going to impact them on that. So it's a Christian question, and so I'm answering it biblically and saying, if you want a Christian response and an understanding of this, then you got to plug in the sovereignty of God as taught in the Bible, especially when it comes to the eternal destiny or the salvation of people. So it's not an issue at all in reality. Arguably, that's more problematic than Christians not caring much about saving people. I'm not sure. Again, okay, I think I've answered that. Christian, follow-up question. What about people who live their entire lives without ever hearing the gospel? Children, people who grow up in extremely religious societies other than Christianity. There are multiple ways we can answer this theologically, Christian. One of them being, one of them being is that, let's just start with like the easiest systematically answered one. Say the Calvinist answer would be, if they're a part of the elect, they will hear the gospel and believe it. If they don't, then they were never part of the elect. That's an answer. Another one being that if God knows that they're going to hear and believe, there's a distinction between the Calvinist one and this one. Then he will get the message to them somehow. So one of the examples that's given for this is folks that say they're in like Muslim societies or whatever like that, and then there's nobody preaching the gospel to them, but they'll have a dream of Jesus or a vision or something like that, and they come to believe. It's like God does the work because nobody else is. Or somebody gives them a Bible, and then they read through the Bible and they become believers like that. X, Y, and Z, right? Another answer would be that God, this is based on Romans chapters 1 and 2 and 3. Not everyone agrees with this interpretation, but it is an interpretation and a view is that God will judge these people on rejecting or accepting his general revelation as it is in creation. His invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been seen in creation, and basically the conscience that God has given people. What you guys are talking about brings to the surface the importance of Christian evangelization and missiology, right? The study of missions and missions work. Why do you think, and the heart of evangelicalism, I would say, right? Why do you think Christians are so attached to this idea of preaching to people, of doing missions work, of sending missionaries, and people getting up and leaving their lives and going to the other side of the world to reach and preach the gospel to a tribe, to learn their language and translate the Bible into their language, to go and serve in their midst and care for their sick and their poor? Why do you think Christians do these things? Because of evangelization, because of the idea that Jesus said, go into all the world, making disciples of all nations. Now, again, this is theologically packaged, and it's got to be argued internally from the Bible, and it goes in line with God's sovereignty as well. Okay. Christian, I think I answered your question. It was kind of quickly, but at least I gave you some strings to pull on and then follow those trains properly. Miss Titus says, you got this, bro. It'll happen when you least expect it. Keep teaching us the deep stuff. I try. It's weird, right? It's like you sleep and you wake up and you're like, wow, what happened? It almost feels like there is a lack of the draw involved on if you're born into a situation where you're likely to encounter the gospel versus not. Maybe not. I mean, would we say the same thing when it comes to, atheism or any other worldview? This is one of those questions that appears as though it's really strong, but I don't think it really has much power to it. It's not a luck of the draw considering God's sovereignty. It's not a luck of the draw, by the way, when you do serious theology and you think about God decreeing the world to be this way, and you look at various passages in the Bible that support this. So, Christian, one of the things I would encourage you to do is probably read some books that deal with that subject, that deal with the subject of God's decree, God's sovereignty. These are things that you probably need to be trained in. I know I needed to be trained into it and then think about it properly. And even in my view, as somebody who is a Wesleyan, Arminian, Molinist, God decreeing the world to exist and then knowing how people would freely respond to anything, he decreed it in such a way where even the time periods and the folks that we're involved with would be there so that we would make the decisions. Think maybe one of the best examples in movies would be to think about the Avengers movies when Doctor Strange looks into the future and says, I looked into whatever, he names the amount of possible worlds he sees, and he says, we're victorious in one. Like, think about that. Like, God has access to all that knowledge, and then goes, here's the realities that I could potentially create in which these things end up happening. And I'm going to actually decree this world in which those things do happen. Now, again, I don't have time to go into all the details of these like very heavy theological stuff. But if you haven't been taught these things, Christian, that might be why you're having the questions and issues that you're having. Zach, everybody deserves to go to hell. There's none righteous, no, not even one. Jeremy, I believe for most of it, it's an issue of comfort and fear. Those are the two largest obstacles. Second to that, then, is tools and training. Correct. Love what you're doing, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hey, check it out, guys. This is Salvation is in the House. Another guy who just had one of his, some of his videos just go viral and has a nice boom in his channel. Really awesome, man. Really happy for you guys. I love seeing these things. There's also the question about which methods are the most useful for the goal of converting people. I'll comment on that. How do you decide which methods are the most efficient and how much time you devote to finding out? So I don't like phrasing it like this. I'll tell you why. Because sometimes we think the method is the thing that gets the person to believe, right? Like manipulation or whatever like that, if I'm being facetious. So I would prefer to train Christians in logical consistency, in presenting an argument properly, in listening to the unbeliever as to the issues that they have towards us, and doing what the loving and correct thing is. And I mean that like not manipulating, saying the right answers, doing the best to be logically consistent and biblically accurate, and then leaving that decision to the person in front of me, right? As to the mechanism in which whatever takes place in that person becoming an actual believer, I don't think is actually based on the methodology. But I want to be responsible and honest, intellectually honest, because intellectual honesty is a moral virtue. So I want to be, and I think that's worship to God. Like being intellectually honest means I'm morally virtuous, which means that I'm worshiping God in that. So I want to train people in doing that well. As a matter of fact, that's essentially what I'm going to be training people today. And what I was doing last week is teaching people like, here's how you present an argument. Here's what it looks like when the person in front of you presents an argument, and how to dialogue through that so that you guys can come to truth, right? So I would prefer to say that the methodology would be very basic, logical thinking. Here's a really, really good logic textbook by Peter Kreeft. Now, some of you guys are like, he's a Catholic. Correct. He's a really good philosopher, and this is a really, really good logic textbook on how to, what are fallacies, what are informal fallacies, what are formal fallacies, how to be logically consistent, X, Y, and Z, right? What are premises, what is valid, what is not valid, all of it. So spend time in becoming a good thinker and communicator. And I would just say this about to Christians, and I do say this, by the way, whenever I get any opportunity to speak to any group of Christians. Jerome says, of course you're answering it biblically. I just think that the idea itself is a little rough. Is God sovereign over the beliefs of people? If so, then that seems optically poor. So again, this becomes an internal dialogue between Christians as to what the Bible says. Now, I don't think God, when I said God is sovereign, I mean he's in control, not that he controls. And that, no, so I don't think he like selects your beliefs, right? You're still responsible for your beliefs and your reaction to your beliefs. But again, then that becomes an in-house debate. See, we want to be charitable and gracious in regards to the sort of conversations that we're having. Zach says God is sovereign, amen. Obviously, we are aware of missionaries. I think that someone with a more robust version of my question would argue that people should be on the missions at all times. Look, again, this is something that the Bible internally gives evidence for and argues for in regards to that. We are all, the Bible calls every Christian a nation of priests. We're all called to do evangelization in our personal lives. But then there are people that are specifically called to different vocations within the ministry of God. Jerome, I'm not sure whether you've read the Bible, my man, but a lot of these questions that you're asking are internally answered within the Bible. So it might make sense for you to read the Bible if you haven't. But like even a robust version of this, and I don't think there is a more robust version. I think what you did was phenomenal. Your question is a really, really good question. But it is internally answered within the Bible. Does other planets, because people says that they exist and people show us pictures of all the other planets. Like, are you saying, do other planets exist? Yeah, of course other planets exist. I'm gonna come back to this question. Just, I don't want to get sidetracked here, okay? Having a strategy to properly account for the psychology of a person you're interested in persuading to believe what you do is not necessarily manipulating, but I think I understand what you mean. I agree with you. So, again, I think that goes in line with the whole thing. To understand how people respond to things. We've had this dialogue, right? Like that we're not like these robots, right? We're not machines where you input a bunch of info and then you get like an output. There's a lot more that goes into why a person believes what they believe. Art, is there a good book you can recommend that has all the different views? Started by Christian forefathers, Augustine, Calvin, Luther. Sure, there's a 4 views book. I mean, depends what you're like on what. So there's a 4 views book. There's a 5 views book on apologetics. There's a 4 views book on, something that I'm sure there's something on soteriology. Like whatever 3-4 views book on soteriology. Let me pull it up. Actually, there is for sure. That 4 views series, or 5 views or whatever. I'll show you what the series is, and then you guys can go check it out. Let me pull this up for you. So yeah, I'll drop this in the comment section. So salvation in a pluralistic world, and then so you got John Hick, Clark Pinnock, Alistair McGrath. Doug Guyvett, by the way, who I'm really hoping to have on the podcast, was one of my professors, and then Gary Phillips. 4 views on salvation in the pluralistic world. This might be something that you want to look at. Let's see what I haven't read this book. So pluralistic view. And it's a debate, by the way. So John Hick argues for a pluralistic view, and then the responses come from Clark, Pinnock, McGrath, and then Guyvett and Phillips. Inclusivist view, Pinnock argues for that, and then Hick, McGrath, these guys. Particularist view. So maybe this doesn't go into the theological disagreements, but again, this is a series you can look at. For example, like the 4 views on eternal security. Right? Wrong button. So 4 views on eternal security, right? So this is, and why does it go back to the old covers? I don't like that. So the series is called Counterpoints. It's right here. And they have like just theological debates between Christians, internal debates on baptism, heaven, Book of Revelation, women in ministry, creation, evolution, intelligent design, biblical inerrancy, our miracles, like for today, homosexuality, like it just marriage. It's a really, really good series. And I have a number of these books. But yeah, so I would just recommend you check those out, Dan. Okay. By the way, in regards to your channel success, I have a feeling your channel will get a lot more popular over time. This is already a good quality channel in terms of video, audio, and content. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Again, for me, it's just my personality. Whatever I do, I want to do it really well. And so getting the right equipment and setting it up well, I mean, it's not like top tier, but it's pretty decent by the grace of God, because a lot of the stuff I have here were given by friends who really want me to do what I'm doing. And then again, I've done same energy, same answers, all of it to 2 people being in my streams and to you guys, whatever. Right now there's 17 people being in my streams. And if we're going to have 300 people in these streams or 700 people in these streams, you're going to get the same energy, same enthusiasm, because that's who I am. You go out to coffee with me, this is what you're going to get. I have a really cool video I want to see if I can show you guys. I want to prove to you guys, sort of, that what you see is what you get, and this is what I look like when I'm hanging out with my friends. Because somebody took a video of me having a conversation in a very sneaky way. And I'm going to show that. Okay, so that's me having a conversation with my friend. And they're playing FIFA. That's me in under normal circumstances. Right? That's what you're going to get. Those guys that were actually there might be in the chat. But I appreciate it, guys. How do I share? How do I make sure of what my calling is? Man, that's a tough question. I don't know whether I can answer that. I would say it's a combination of prayer. It's a combination of things you enjoy and stuff that you're really good at. It could be the case that God just kind of lets you know, hey, here's what I want you to do, and you just get up and do it. Remember that I'm not asking about the intricacies of what someone's calling is for ministry. I didn't assume you were. Well, what just happened? I'm asking why it's the case that sovereignty of God prevents constant evangelizing. Well, I think there should be constant evangelizing, but not like one person doing all of it. A lot of people doing some of it, you could say. And people are doing that. What I'm saying is that all of that is undergirded under the sovereignty of God. Yeah, I mean, I would agree there is some tension in that, but it's not tension that hasn't been reconciled and resolved by scholars. Thank you. You have a good charisma outlook generally as well, Arthur. You do a really good job being polite and charitable with everyone, including us atheists. Thank you, man. That means a lot to me. They are playing FIFA, man. I'm Derek Ray. Yeah, that was at our men's retreat. Stop complimenting me. Do I have something for that? What's up, Buck? How you doing, man? Do apologists just explain their interpretation of scripture versus other denominations' interpretations, or do they teach the morals behind the scriptures? Oh, man, it's... all of the above. It really depends who the person is. You know, today when I was in the shower, I do some of my clearest thinking when I'm in the shower, by the way, for some reason. And that's just been the case for a long time. I was thinking about apologetics and I was thinking about various apologists, and I was saying, I can't. It's partly because I had watched a video and I was like, okay, how would I respond to that video? At what angle I would approach it, and so on and so forth. And one of the things that I was thinking about was I can't think of any apologists right now where they start and they really argue for starting apologetics with hermeneutics. So like, I'm like that. That's my view. If you don't know hermeneutics very well, and all the good apologists I know hermeneutics very well and are educated in that, maybe it's because they know it so well and it was just like a part of their education. They focus on other areas. So like, okay, maybe the most popular Christian apologist is William Lane Craig, right? But like Bill Craig very rarely talks about hermeneutics. Now, in his defenders classes, when he's teaching at his church, he is, when he's dealing with different theological perspectives and all that. But when he's doing, the Kalam cosmological argument, he's not dealing with things of that sort. He's not dealing with hermeneutics. And even guys like Frank Turek, right, who do these Q&A sort of stuff, I don't see them kind of teaching people how to do hermeneutics. They'll like give an answer. This is partly why I have my Bible up, and then when you guys ask questions of a scriptural nature, I like opening it up and looking at the genre and then the context and all of that included in there. But yeah, an apologist is not a priest, not necessarily. No. I still haven't shown that video I have queued up right now. Also, the constant evangelism is for everyone in that question, not just one person. Yeah. Yeah, again, I think that ultimately, let me put it this way. Nobody's going to go to hell accidentally in the Christian view of things. Nobody will go to hell accidentally, and nobody will go to hell because any specific Christian did not evangelize to that person. That's the answer. It's very difficult, Buck, because you might have apologists that are historians, so they do historical apologetics, like Gary Habermas. And you might have an apologist that is a philosopher, like a William Lane Craig. So I would say Jim Wallace, J. Warner Wallace is an apologist who's a forensic scientist. Like the guy is a cold case detective. So it depends. You could have your expertise in various ways, and then you bring it into your apologetical arguments. Okay, I want to watch this video because, number one, it's coming from an atheist, and I think it's generally exactly the heart behind what Jerome was asking. Okay. Here we go.
I want to talk to you about this. I get home from the show, and at the end of the show, as I've mentioned before, we go out and we talk to folks and sign an occasional autograph and shake hands and so on. And there was one guy waiting over to the side in the what I call the hover position after I was all done. Big guy, probably about my age. Big guy. And he had been the guy who picks the joke during our psychic comedian section of the show. So he had the props from that in his hand because we'd give those away. He had the joke book and the envelope and the paper and stuff. If you haven't seen the live show, it's not worth explaining. But he had props from the show that we'd given him from the night before. He wasn't the guy that night. And he walked over to me and he said, I was here last night at the show, and I saw the show and I liked it. And he was very complimentary about my use of language and complimentary about, honesty and stuff. He said nice stuff. No reason to go into it. He said nice stuff. And then he said, I brought this for you. And he handed me a Gideon Pocket Edition. I thought it said from the New Testament, but I also thought it was Psalms from the New Testament, right? Psalms from just part of the New Testament. Little book about this big, this thick, He said, I wrote in the front of it, and I wanted you to have this. I'm kind of proselytizing. And then he said, I'm a businessman. I'm sane. I'm not crazy. And he looked me right in the eye and did all of this. And it was really wonderful. I believe he knew that I was an atheist. But he was not defensive. And he looked me right in the eyes. And he was truly complimentary. It wasn't in any way, it didn't seem like empty flattery. He was really kind and nice and sane and looked me in the eyes and talked to me. And then gave me this Bible. And I've always said, that I don't respect people who don't proselytize. I don't respect that at all. If you believe that there's a heaven and hell and people could be going to hell or not getting eternal life or whatever, and you think that, it's not really worth telling them this because it would make it socially awkward. And atheists who think that people shouldn't proselytize, just leave me alone, keep your religion to yourself. How much do you have to hate somebody to not proselytize? How much do you have to hate somebody to believe that everlasting life is possible and not tell them that? I mean, if I believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that a truck was coming at you and you didn't believe it, that truck was bearing down on you, there's a certain point where I tackle you. And this is more important than that. And I've always thought that, and I've written about that, and I've thought of it conceptually. This guy was a really good guy. He was polite and honest and sane, and he cared enough about me to proselytize and give me a Bible, which had written in it a little note to me, not very personal, but just, liked your show and so on. And then 5 phone numbers for him and an email address if I wanted to get in touch. Now, I know there's no God, and one polite person living his life right doesn't change that. But I'll tell you, he was a very, very, very good man. And that's really important. And with that kind of goodness, it's okay to have that deep of a disagreement. I still think that religion does a lot of bad stuff, but man, that was a good man who gave you that book. That's all I wanted to say.
I think, generally speaking, Jerome, that's what you're coming at with here. It's exactly what is being shared here. And again, I agree. If Christians really believe this stuff, they should be telling people. In my experience, in my experience, there's a couple of reasons why Christians don't share and try to convert people. Number one would be that they are by name Christians and not really Christians. They're not actually saved. They're not actual real Christians. It's heritage or whatever like that. It's what I was for 17 years of my life. Baptized as a kid, whatever, right? There's people who are like that for 30-something years of their life. That's one. Another one is a lack of information. They're scared because they don't have information tools in their hands to be able to have those kinds of conversations. which goes back to what Jeremy was sharing earlier on about equipping people and folks like me in the church doing our jobs to train people to do it properly. And that's what I think my calling is in life, is to train folks in doing this well. Or part of it, I would say, part of my calling is that. Another one is that they buy into some kind of a cultural lie or something like that, that these are things that you don't speak about. Again, I think I've shared this many times. When I was a new Christian, there was a guy who was an atheist, who was ethnically Jewish and atheist, and I was actually sharing about Jesus in my class in community college, and he pulled me aside during the break and he said, man, I was like 18, 19 years old, new Christian, and he said, there's three things we don't talk about: religion, politics, and sports, which I kind of looked at and I was like, dude, you just sucked out of the whole fun out of life. And like this cultural kind of paradigm, like these things are too offensive to people and we don't talk about them. It's like, I agree with what was just said about how much do you have to hate people not to tell them that, right? And tell them all this important stuff. The other thing would be like, Jesus very clearly says, go into all the world, making disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We are a nation of priests. So these are internally kind of things. But I've usually seen Christians by name, so that's why they don't do it. Christians who aren't equipped enough to do it, whether in methodology or information, which means it's an issue of learning, and learning is hard. Learning books is hard. Reading arguments from the oppositions are hard. Or they've bought into some kind of a weird cultural kind of paradigm. Or the worst of all is they're careless. And for me, if they're careless, that's an issue of sin and worship towards God and all that. But again, those are just that's my experience, and that's what I've seen. I don't think I've left anything out there. Jerome, again, this has to do with internal Christian theology. This question of why do people go to hell? Everybody is on their way to hell already because we are sinners and in rebellion towards God. You and I both. It's not just rejection, it is rejection and that. Right? So say in our conversation here is that I think we've presented the fact, and I've presented the fact that you and I are both sinners. We've done wrong towards God, and a just God would punish us for the wrong that we've done. Let's just put what that punishment would look like to the side for a second. At the end of the day, we still would need to be punished for the wrong that we've done, if God is just. And God has provided a way of rescue or escape or salvation. That's what we say when we say one is saved from that situation. In that, God loved you so much, and God loved me so much, in that he sent his only begotten Son to take our punishment on himself and die in our place, so that you and I, in believing in him, would have eternal life, would not go to hell. That's the gospel, right? Now, if that's even presented and someone rejects it, then that's on top of that. Well, look, Jerome, you got to chill a little bit here, because like I wouldn't interpret and apply that text the way my friend did. That's an internal debate we have with each other as Christians. But I don't think you would, if given the time, he would explain himself, I think, a lot more. Alexander, what's up? How you doing? Hi. What up, brother? Did you see the Jeff Durbin, James White debate with Brandon Robertson? I have watched maybe like 80% of that. I was watching it yesterday, and then I was also doing work, and it was also the case that I had Bible study, and I had to prepare for Bible study. So let me see how far I am in. in that. So what happened to my ads? I'll tell you where I am. For some reason my audio just disappeared. My audio levels. There they are. So it's an hour and 22 minutes. I've watched 56 minutes of this conversation. So far, so good, even though Jeff Durbin, with all due respect to the guy, because I think he's great. And it might change and get better and different than what it is and what I've seen. That's not the way I would have a conversation. I think there's a lot of cutting each other off that shouldn't be there. Now I've gone. This guy, James White, really. This dude, Brandon. There was something I think he did that was disrespectful when he was like, "I've studied this for a decade" or something, and then James White was like, "Man, I was studying this stuff when you were in your diapers," which is true. Like, you got to be very careful who you're stepping up to the plate like that with, and just be respectful towards your elders. Again, that's a cultural thing that's been taught to me, but just be respectful. I went to Bible college with guys like this. Like, I went to Bible college with folks that were in my class, and we learned all the same exact information, and now they're out there progressive Christianity and accepting this and that, and the Bible's not the word of God, and no, it's not infallible and inerrant, and all that stuff. And like, right, like, we read all the same literature, we had the same professors, and it's interesting to me that you get folks like this and how you deal with them, because they're like internally produced, I would say. But I want to finish it, and I can't finish it today, guaranteed, because I'm gonna end the stream soon, and then I gotta take my kids to get their haircut, and then I gotta teach tonight. So yeah. What's up? What about when proselytizing leads directly to suffering persecution for a populace after conversion that didn't exist before, such as under the Tokugawa shogunate in the 17th century Japan? That is a part of Christian history, my friend. It has been the case where conversion almost always, initially in societies, has led to suffering and persecution. Jerome says, Arthur, Man Bear Pig is a Man United fan, by the way. Welcome to the stream. I don't want to overdo it, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I wish I had some 7-Up right now. Moving on, guys. Moving on. Let's not pick on them. It's okay. They won their game yesterday. Well done. It seems like it was a good recovery. We'll see what it's like in the league. And look, frankly, I'm scared playing Bournemouth tomorrow, because I think there's quite a bit of pressure on Liverpool to kind of not choke, considering that win, and then like end up tying Bournemouth, which Liverpool has done over and over this season. Right, like, we beat Man City, and then the following week lost to, who knows, I don't know, probably Brighton or something. So let's hope Liverpool go out there and smash 6 in tomorrow, and we'll be sitting in 4th place for at least an hour and a half. depending on how Spurs do. But yeah. That transcends all cultures to respect elders, but our culture rejects it. Well, then we're stupid. They rebuked each other, a false gospel at the end. I gotta watch this. What's up, Joseph? Hi. In for 3 cups and top 4. How's Liverpool doing? We were lost the league by 1 point last season. We were in the final of the Champions League. Won the FA Cup and the League Cup. Come on, man, don't. We're having a bad season, but don't think that United is having a phenomenal season. You've won 1 cup. You could very easily end the season with 1 cup. And if you get a couple of bad results, might be even sitting in 5th. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. My brother is a Liverpool fan. It was rough last. I am sorry. You have one in the house. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop, man. You got one in the house. That's enough punishment for you. Okay. Is there anything I want to say to the folks that are in here? You guys, Monday, I am starting the Ecclesiastes studies that are going to be for patrons only on Patreon. So if you're interested in joining our study in that, go and become a patron for the lowest tier. Start with the lowest one, which is $5. And join us for those studies. It's going to be done over Zoom. And yeah. Again, it's Friday. That's why I'm saying that. I don't know how else, but I'll post some stuff, I guess, so for people to know. I think I'm going to like it here. You definitely will. You definitely will. Again, he said European soccer, man. Again, he said European soccer. What are you going to do with this guy? We should put you on timeout for saying European soccer. Stop it. I should come up with a channel that we just talk. Maybe when this channel does really well, I'll just come up with a football channel where I have all my soccer friends on, all my football friends on. And, I have really, really good friends who are Chelsea fans and Everton fans, United fans, and just like watch games together and react. I think that'd be hilarious. Dude, I've watched a lot of videos of United fans just like screaming this past week. Yeah, just it's a one-off, man. It's a one-off. Look, man. I would rather have Arsenal than City all day. Will Mbappe surpass Messi when it's all said and done? No. No, because he plays for PSG. Unless Mbappe ends up at a Barcelona or a Real Madrid, or a Man United, I wouldn't want him at Liverpool. I don't like his attitude. Kylian Mbappe is 24 years old. The question is going to come down to, like, he's won the World Cup, but like Champions League. Nobody cares about the French league, man. Like, he's got to win Spain. He's got to win England. Like, if he wants to compete with those names, with your Ronaldos or your Messis. And then do it for another 14 years, by the way. That should be added. It'd be very interesting to see what happens with Kylian Mbappe in 5 years' time when his speed is not what it is now. That he's got to go to United where legends are made. Okay. I got to go, guys, because I got to get ready and take my kids to get their haircuts. Hair's cut. There's 2 of them that need haircuts. My son's hair is really long, and then we got to fix it up. He wants a Darwin Nunez. He's been growing out his hair to look like Darwin's hair since he came over to Liverpool. So we got to fix that up for it to look good. And the youngest one just wants some nice designs on the side. With all that said, hey, it's been great, guys. Jerome, thank you for that question, man, because that question essentially, I mean, we were talking about that almost the entire time. That was phenomenal. It's a good challenge. Appreciate it. Said, I love how seamless the transition was away from sovereignty of God and to a 7-0 Premier League win. It is what you get, man. Maybe I'm a bit scatterbrained, and that's easy for me to do, but it is what it is. So with all that said, guys, God bless you guys. You guys have a phenomenal weekend. I will see you guys on Monday. If you're a patron, Monday morning, I got my times mixed up here. Let me pull it up. Monday morning, 9:30 a.m. West Coast time is when we will have that. And I'll drop the link on Patreon so everybody accesses that. If you're not on Patreon, make sure you jump on Patreon so that you have access to that. And I'll post about it on Instagram, and then I'll also post it in the community section here on YouTube so folks know what's going on. And just that's what's coming up. And if you're not going to be in that, then I will see you during our live Q&A time, 1 p.m. West Coast time on Monday. So you guys have an amazing weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Up the Reds. Hopefully Liverpool win tomorrow, 5-6-0. We beat them 9-0 last time. So I want just lots and lots of goals on Bournemouth. It's a good opportunity to get that goal difference up. And then jump into 4th place, and you will see me smiling. Hopefully United lose this weekend. Hopefully Tottenham lose this weekend. Hopefully Man City lose this weekend, and Arsenal lose this weekend, and Everton lose this weekend. And I don't know if any of those guys are playing each other, by the way. And Newcastle, I hope they lose or draw, because we need to get up there in that table. With all that said, God bless you guys, and I will see you, like I said, on Monday. Take care.